Shoot from you, right? We welcome you to the cannabis night here in Woodside for District 7. I'm Margaret Marshall from the League of Women Voters, and I'm moderating this evening. We have public participants, and Colby is going to sort the questions. Joanne Brugman is going to be the timekeeper. Bernadette is going to put it on TV for the world to see. Probably on the front page of New York Times tomorrow morning.
And I'm going to recommend that you please use the microphone. Wireless.
Okay.
Like an ice cream cone.
Anyway, we're delighted that you're here tonight for our cannabis night. The League is a nonpartisan group, and our main focus is education, and we want voters to have all the information they need to make good decisions. Tonight, we're very lucky to have two candidates. We have Dan Blewett and Frank Rosenblum.
That's it.
Got it right. Okay. Running in District 7. There are 7 members on the City Council. There are a couple of them in the audience here tonight. And in District 7 is the only one that has a contested election. Right. Okay, so they each will be able to give an opening statement of 4 minutes each. And then after they give their opening statements, we'll take questions from the audience. And cards will be passed out so you can write your question on the card. And then the collectors will bring them up here to be sorted. And we'll ask them to get an opportunity, and they'll have 2 minutes to answer each question. But you don't have to take 2 minutes to answer the question. And if your fellow candidate says the very same thing that you're going to say, it's okay to say you agree with them and then go on to the next question. Sometimes that makes it a little better, a little more specific. And then when we're through with all the questions that you want to have answered, we'll have closing statements for each of you, 3 minutes, and we'll be out of here by 8:30, but we can be out earlier if we run out of questions to ask. Are there any questions about the format we're going to use before we begin? Okay.
I would just
Questions
point out
from the
that
audience?
I will be videotaping it, but it's going to be focused on them. Your voice may get in it, but your face won't unless you walk in front of the camera. And I hope that's all right with everybody. If not,
Okay. Can you all hear?
When you go up here.
Okay. The very first person to speak will be Nick Brewett. You get to do the sign. You can stand or sit, whichever you prefer.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for this amazing opportunity. Thank you all for coming out on a Thursday night. I'm sure there are other places you could be, so I appreciate your time and attention. My name is Ned Blewett. I'm running for Woodside Town Council in District 7. I love Woodside. This is the town where my wife Katie and I bought our first home. This is the town where we chose to raise our 2 daughters, who are 2 and 3.5. We were drawn to Woodside by its rural nature, its sense of community, and unique spirit. I was born in Chicago. My mother was a school counselor, and my father managed a warehouse. My parents struggled to put me and my 3 siblings through school. Money was always tight in my house, and we faced a lot of difficulties. Despite these challenges, I was taught by my parents that you have to use your time and talents for others. My parents emphasized that no matter what your lot in life is, you have a duty to give back to your community. I went to UCLA on a Veterans Administration scholarship. I put myself through law school. In between college and law school, I volunteered in rural Africa for 2 years. There, I taught English to grammar school children and taught or coached the local village soccer team. Since moving back to California in 2013, I have served the community in various ways. I've been a criminal prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Jose, and also as a Deputy Attorney General for the California Attorney General's Office in San Francisco. In those roles, I've prosecuted drug dealers, gang members, violent individuals, but I also defended peace officers in complex civil rights disputes. Currently, I'm a partner at Palo Alto's oldest law firm, Blake & Spears. I'm a litigator, and I focus my practice primarily on complex family disputes and advocating for victims of elder abuse, for which I am especially proud. For almost 3 years, I've served on the town's environmental committee and currently as chairman. In that position, we have advocated for preserving Woodside's rural nature, open spaces, and currently working with the town to increase the town's energy independence through solar panels and EV chargers. As a town council member, I want to be a voice, I want to be an advocate for town residents. I will tackle the issues that matter to residents, whether it's traffic, building and permitting, safe routes to schools, or protecting and preserving Woodside's rural nature. I know how to mediate, I know how to build consensus, and I know how to bring divergent, sometimes warring groups together. I'll bring those skills and those talents to Woodside. For those reasons, I humbly ask for your vote and look forward to answering your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ned. Frank?
And choose words, everybody. Well, thank you, League of Women Voters, Woodside Church, and citizens of Woodside for holding this candidate forum tonight. I, Frank Rosenblum, am stepping up to run for town council position in District 7, vacated by Peter Mason earlier this year. Mr. Mason was on the council for 10 years, and we are very thankful for his service. The council is losing 3 long-term council members next month. A couple of them are here tonight. Ann Caston, who served for 8 years. 9.
That last whole year was
Okay, Deborah Gordon, 17 years. Got that right? Dave Tanner, 19 years. This makes for a total combined 54 years of town council experience we are losing this year. Yes, I'm an engineer and numbers are my thing. So now, more than ever, Woodside needs new council members with knowledge and experience. The three other districts have uncontested races with only one candidate running. And only District 7 gives Woodside voters a choice between 2 candidates. And that is why we're here tonight. I lived in Woodside for 8 years with my wife Jennifer, sitting up there, and our champion Frisbee dog Pismo. We have 3 adult children who are now out on their own. This was a knock on wood, so wood. And we enjoy having our 3 grandchildren visit us in what they refer to as the forest house. I've grown to love and appreciate Woodside's natural beauty and municipal importance to Silicon Valley and the Bay Area. This is truly one of the most special places on earth. I was born and raised in nearby Los Altos and spent much of my younger years hiking and biking the hills of the peninsula. I remember the valley when there were more orchards than silicon. I've seen the Bay Area grow around Woodside, and I understand the challenges of protecting and preserving it. I'm a professional civil engineer, land surveyor, and businessman, and own Underwood and Rosenblum, a mid-sized civil engineering company in San Jose. I have experience on thousands of private and public land development projects throughout Northern California. I work with landowners, architects, contractors, government officials, and city staff every day. I've been doing this for 35 years. I have worked on the design of dozens of homes, just like the ones built in Woodside. I'm a renowned expert in designing schools and school traffic safety projects. I'm currently the only licensed state licensed land surveyor living in Woodside. Only a licensed surveyor can legally determine the location of property lines and subdivide new property. I'm often hired as an expert witness to give my own professional opinions in land development cases. I've served on the Town Council Circulation Committee for almost 5 years. I'm currently the committee's chair. I've reviewed and discussed many of the town traffic and safety concerns. I was further involved in promoting safe routes to school work at Woodside Elementary School, and I attended town council meetings where I encouraged the town to fund this work, even when the state would not. These projects are now moving forward with town funding, and our amazement are now getting matching state funds. Living up the hill in District 7, I've experienced firsthand the road failures, the painful road closure projects, and I've encouraged our town engineer to put pressure on Caltrans when it's been obvious that the construction was behind schedule. Going forward, the town is in the process of reevaluating some of the development standards for residential construction. Traffic on our streets is increasing as cities around us grow and the roads get more crowded. Recreational use of the roads and trails by bicycle pedestrians and hikers is increasing. Most of the current town staff has been around a long time and is ready to make some changes. We need council members with experience who understand and can logically think through the new agenda and make decisions. I want to be one of those council members, and I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like you have two good candidates to choose from in the coming election. Let's have our first question. Betsy, do you have any here that have been turned in already? Bring on your questions.
I would like to start.
We have one we could start with while they're collecting. Some have been turned in at any time. Oh, here's one.
How long does each question?
Yeah, each answer has to be no more than 2 minutes, and the timekeeper will show the little cards that say slow down and stop. And if you're in the middle of a sentence, you can finish the sentence, but that's it, okay? All righty, let's look at the first question. What ideas do you have to control bike and car traffic on Woodside Road through town? That's a good one. You go first this time.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a great question, and that's one that comes up a lot. I've been meeting with residents for the last couple of months, and I don't think there's been a single resident who has not brought up traffic as one of the major issues in town. As most of you know, the last couple of years, traffic has increased exponentially in town. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of those reasons is the Waze app and Google Maps have been sending people off of 280 and going through Whiskey Hill and other parts of town to avoid highway traffic. I heard recently from residents of Old Hunter Road that they're seeing increased traffic during rush hour as well. So God forbid that Waze is sending rush hour traffic up Old Hunter Road. So hopefully that is not true, but there are certain ways we can rectify the situation. First and foremost is to have a conversation with Waze and other tech companies that are directing traffic through town. We need to have someone on town council, an advocate who can go to Waze and say this has to stop. Yes, they are a tech company, yes, they're large, but we need a voice. We need someone to go there and say, we have to find another way. I know that the Waste Company has a community outreach program. We need to start sending people to that program and letting them know that this is unacceptable, that it's dangerous. We have equestrians, we have children, we have a lot to protect in town, and we cannot afford to essentially be an off-ramp for 280. Cyclists is a whole other issue, and one that comes up quite a bit as well. Obviously, cyclists are very popular in Woodside. They're not going to go away, but we have to respect their rights as much as we do equestrians and anyone else who comes through town. But one thing that I would advocate for is additional patrols, additional sheriff presence in town. Because one thing that any cyclist, really anyone respects, is having sheriff's presence. And these guys who are doing 2 to 3 across, not stopping at stop signs, that needs to end. And the only way to really get them to stop that is to actually start ticketing and having real enforcement in town. Thank you.
Could you repeat the questions?
The question was, what ideas do you have to control bike and car traffic on Woodside Road through town?
Okay. Now, the question was specifically regarding Woodside Road through town. I've been serving on the Woodside Circulation Committee for almost 5 years now, and I'm the chair. And the things that we review more than anything are traffic issues and bicycles and the safety and what's going on. I can tell you that there are some pilot programs right now where they're doing studies on Kings Mountain Road to provide turnouts for bikes. They do have legal access to the roads. It's a matter of how do we make it safe. And at least on the mountainous roads, if bicycles were using turnouts more, it seems to become more of a practice now for bicycles to kind of hold their position in the road and not let cars pass. And I think some of that behavior needs to change. I witnessed firsthand, and actually Ned does too, anybody living up Highway 84, we often have to drive along with bicycles. I myself was a bicycle rider in my youth and spent many times on the hills here, so I do have personal experience of understanding that you can't always pull over for a car to pass, and it's a matter of safety. So the roads are always being looked at. We've got, we're looking at Woodside Road, the interchange between Woodside Road and 280. There's some very unsafe on and off ramps there where the bicycle lanes kind of abruptly end, and bicycle riders are kind of put their lives at stake sometimes trying to cross some of those quick off and on ramps. So my time is up, and I could probably talk about this subject for a long time.
Okay, here's another question, and we'll let Frank answer it first. It's, should all citizens of Woodside have access to unlimited data, high-speed internet?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That sounds like a great idea. I think everybody probably has access that I know of through Comcast. So, no, I see some head shaking. Wow. Welcome to I didn't know that. Well, I live up in District 7, and we don't have cell phone net. I actually have to use cable to get a cell phone. My Verizon is too weak at my house. So, yeah, because we're a mountain community, a lot of times these things aren't everywhere. But I would absolutely have to agree that in this day and age, everybody should have high-speed internet. So this is actually the first I've even heard of this, and certainly anything that I can do as on the town council to move that along, I certainly would.
All right, thank you. Great question. I too live up in the hills and, like Frank, am fortunate to have Comcast, but I do know that at least Old Honda Road has none. And some of you may not know this, but back in, I don't know how many years ago, but when Comcast was putting lines in the town, they just essentially stopped before Old Honda Road. And the reason was it was either too expensive or too difficult. So we have a pretty major section of our town that does not have internet or cable. It is shocking to me. Is this a problem that we can overcome? I think so. Again, we need to have people on town council who are going to advocate for everyone, not just folks at the bottom of the hill, but also the folks at the top of the hill. And it is just unacceptable that we do not have internet throughout this town. Right now, Comcast is paying a franchise fee to the town of Woodside, and I think that's something that can certainly be increased if they're not willing to provide cable to everyone on that hill. It's not just, enjoying your HBO or getting your Game of Thrones or, emailing your kids, which is all important. But all of us rely on cable and internet for emergency services, for communication. This is an inherent problem and needs to be remedied. And what I would do is, as a town council member, go out to Comcast and say that this has to change to fight for the residents of Old Honda Road. And and increase franchise fees if we need to make them listen to us. One thing no one likes to do is to speak in public. I know I don't, even though I'm doing it right now. But let's get Comcast at Town Hall. Let's have them explain why they are not doing this and what we can do. Have that conversation. Let's have that difficult conversation and get cable up on the mountain.
Okay. Now you get to answer this next question first. What is your opinion of the pig scramble?
I was afraid of this question. So it's not an easy one, but it's an important one. And I know this comes up every year and is pretty controversial in town with some pretty strongly held beliefs on either side. And I guess I want to be the politician here and take the middle ground, but I'll tell you what my personal opinion is. Probably unlike a lot of people in this room, I actually lived and worked on a pig farm for 2 years straight. When I was living in Africa, the school that I worked at actually had a fully functioning pig farm. So probably unlike a lot of people here, unlike a lot of people who go to the rodeo, I've raised pigs, I've fed pigs, I've slaughtered pigs personally, I've lived with pigs. I understand them. They're beautiful creatures, they're very smart creatures, and at no time while I was working on that farm did we once wrestle pigs to the ground. Not once did we chase them around the farm. we just didn't do that. In this day and age, in 2018, 2019, I think we need to take a hard look at whether this is something that the town of Woodside needs. I'm open to listening to the other side. I'm open to listening to the folks on the rodeo. I love the rural nature of this community, but you know, the pig scramble says something that I don't know if I could support without hearing a little bit more from the rodeo and why this is really necessary. I don't know if this is something that makes our town better. I don't know if this makes our town great or something that we should really revisit. And if it comes up again before town council, I want to have a hard look at it. I want to talk to the experts. I want to talk to the vets. I want to talk to the rodeo folks. I want to talk to the farmers. But right now, I don't think it's necessary for this town, and I think we can do better.
Okay, Frank, what do you think about this scramble?
Okay. Another question I wasn't expecting. I actually have no experience with pigs. I haven't wrestled a pig. But I do love animals, and I think it's important for everybody to be responsible for that. I also know that Woodside has a deep heritage in farming and rural aspects of life and equestrians, and I think it's important that whatever happens in Woodside takes that into account. I'm a logical thinker, so I hear something like this that I don't know much about. I want to learn a lot more about it before I can really make a good decision on that. I like exciting things. It seems like an exciting thing. So if it could be done in a way that people can come together before I'm for that. So I think that's about all I can say about pigs right now.
Okay, let's go on. Frank, you can answer this next
Sure.
question first. Do you believe, this is a little different one, do you believe the town's regulations regarding residential development are too lax, too strict, or just right, and why?
That is a question I was expecting. In my work, I do land development and a lot of residential design work. And I work in cities and towns all over the Bay Area. So I have the advantage of seeing what every other city around does. So I got some reference to compare Woodside to. And certainly Woodside has some of the most strict development standards of any of the cities in the Bay Area. But that is by design and for good reason. The whole purpose of Woodside originally was to preserve a rural character, and it's done a really good job of that. And a lot of that's because of our codes and regulations for residential development. We have large setbacks, and here it's about preserving the environment as much as we can, not doing a lot of extensive grading, retaining walls, cutting down trees. And so you might say these are strict standards, and they are, but I think they're necessary. So I think the question was, do I think they're too lax or too strict or about right? I would have to say they're about right for Woodside. If somebody gave these to me and I was doing a project in San Jose or Mountain View where I do a lot of work, I would say no, it's a little extreme, but I'd have to say I support it. I know the town is considering making some changes and exceptions for the Glens to do some changes to the specific plan, and a lot of that's just because the standards are very difficult to apply, physically to the size of the lots there, and so there are some things to be looking at. Woodside has quite a variety of types of plan, and we have to look at that.
Thank you. Ned, you remember the question?
I do. Thanks. I'm going to agree with Frank. I think they're just about right, and I think second to road safety and traffic, the thing I hear most from residents walking around is building and permitting in town. Usually that's the #1 issue for folks. Right or wrong, there's definitely a lot of frustration among residents there's a perception, I think, outside of Woodside, inside of Woodside, that we are unduly strict and we just make this way too hard for residents to build. I agree with Frank that for the most part, these rules are in place for a good reason. We moved here because of its rural nature. We are living in Woodside because of what it is. Most of us have choices to live in other towns, but we live here because we love the natural aspect of it. That said, I think there can be some common sense changes still to be made. We can always do better. One of which is Frank just mentioned, is taking a look at the zoning and whether or not we should have a hard look at non-conforming lots. I have learned throughout this process that at least over 50% of the lots in the town of Woodside are non-conforming. And when you have a non-conforming lot, that means you have added bureaucracy, added costs, added red tape to any building process. And when you have more than half your town like that, you probably should take a real hard look at whether this is the appropriate use of the code. And what the town is doing with the Glens is a great first step. Let's look at this issue neighborhood by neighborhood and design codes and regulations that are appropriate for the neighborhoods themselves. The Glens is very different than Woodside Hills. That's very different from District 7. We need to do a neighborhood by neighborhood examination so that normal folks like you, like you and me, can actually build on their homes, can improve their homes, and have some transparency too, so we know what to expect.
Good. Okay, you got to be first this time. This is a question for both of you. What business interests do you have that could cause a conflict with your duties on the town council in Woodside? How would you deal with it if you had a conflict? Yeah, you got it first.
Thank you for the question. So I think it's an important one, and I applaud what the town has done in the last year. You don't know, the town's taken a hard look at its ethical rules and convened a special committee just to reform those rules. I think that was a great first step. I personally take ethics and conflict of interest extremely seriously. I'm a member of the California Bar, the Illinois Bar, a few other bars, and as such, I am held to an extremely high standard of ethics, and conflict of interest is actually something I deal with every single day at my office. My paralegal is actually here today, she can attest to it. So I think the actual question is what conflicts I would have. Primarily, I deal with family law litigation, trust estates litigation, so I likely wouldn't have those things come before town. I don't have any active lawsuits or any active litigation with town, and so hopefully, God forbid, I wouldn't be suing town or be sued by town. But of course, if any legal case came to town that I was involved in, even tangentially, I would remove myself immediately. I think there cannot even be the appearance of a conflict of interest. In my practice, if I think there's even a hint of it, I step away from the case, no matter how valuable, how many hours I might be able to build to it. Ethics have to be paramount in government. And if there's even an appearance of a conflict, I believe a town council person should step aside for the betterment of the town.
Okay, thank you. Frank?
Yeah. Well, this is a good question for me because in my work as a civil engineer and designer of land development projects, I do have opportunities to actually work on projects here in Woodside where maybe someone's adding under their home, building a new house, or doing a land survey. So I thought hard about this, and even though I can recuse myself from those particular projects if they were to come up, in this day and age of suspicion, I would probably just not be doing any more work at Woodside while I was on the town council. My company does work all over the Bay Area. I may have some people in my office, which I wasn't saying this, but Woodside would be a very small percentage of work in my company. I've worked on maybe 4 or 5 homes here in Woodside in my career, so it doesn't happen very often. And I will be always very open about where my work is occurring, so that can decide for themselves whether getting to something that could be a conflict. But my focus is trying to bring all this experience I have in doing work around the Bay Area and some in Woodside to be a knowledgeable person on the town council.
Okay, and here's a little bit of a different question. In light of the new California law requiring a better gender balance on corporate boards, what is your opinion on requiring that the town council represent the gender makeup of the town?
Was that written by somebody here? I'm afraid it is.
Not going to happen in this election.
I gotta say, I personally a little disappointed to see that the council is becoming an all-male council. We're losing a couple of very fine women council members that have been involved here for a long time. To make it a requirement, wow, I don't know if I'm prepared to even try to answer that. I feel that everybody should be represented and have equal representation and access, and boy, making it a requirement, that's, like I said, I don't know if I can really answer that right now.
Okay, Ned, do you want to try to answer?
Can I get the question again?
In the light of the new California law requiring better gender balance on corporate boards, what is your opinion on requiring that the town council represent the gender makeup of the town? Do we know the gender makeup of the town?
I presume the gender makeup is close to 50-50. So I agree with pretty much everything that Frank said. Of course, one disappointment I have with this race is also that we're going to have, no matter what happens, we're going to have a town council that is made up primarily, well, 100% of men. It's the way it is shaken out this year, but I think it is extremely important to have women in leadership positions, women in government, speaking, having a voice. And I don't think, I haven't heard of any government requiring a gender balance for any government position, but I think there are still things we can do. This town is made up of a lot of volunteer committees, and on those volunteer committees serve a lot of different women. And I think one thing we can do is certainly provide a bigger voice to those volunteer committees. I know my committee has women on it, I'm sure your committee has women on it, and provide them with a better voice, support those committees so that women who are on that committee feel more comfortable or feel more comfortable running for office, feeling heard in town. Of course, if I'm elected as a town council member, I will be a voice for everyone, not just middle-aged men, but everyone in town, including women. So I think we can do a better job encouraging women in government in general, and we can start with the different committees that we have in town and pulling from people who are already volunteering and giving their time.
Okay, here's one we want to answer first. This is a little different. Wildfires are a growing concern to us. How does the town work with the fire district to create evacuation plans, fire barriers, eliminate underbrush, and general preparedness? Okay.
There's a lot to unpack in that question. So I think, generally, especially in District 7, but I think town-wide, fire safety is a paramount concern. I live in a wooded area. I imagine Frank does as well. So fire safety is something that is paramount in my mind pretty much every single day. And getting on and off the mountain is something that the town needs to take seriously. The people in District 7 need to be guaranteed to have safe ingress and egress off the mountain. I know I have felt the last couple of years that the town has sometimes kind of forgotten about the issues up where we live. Both Frank and I witnessed 84 fall apart a couple of years ago. That was actually in my backyard. And if we can't guarantee safe roads in District 7, then if there's an emergency, if there's a fire, we're all in pretty deep trouble. So, of course, I would support we have to support the Woodside Fire Protection District. They do a fantastic job. Specifically, I would try to expand the chipper program. If you don't know, the chipper program is a program where the town comes around throughout town, picks up our twigs and leaves and other kindling. And I would also expand the defensible space program, which is a matching program where the town gives up to $2,000 for houses to have defensible space. I would try to increase that 2,000 matching program so that more people are encouraged to protect their own homes. But fire safety is a paramount concern for me and one of my top issues, and I want to work hard to make sure that District 7 is safe, but also the rest of the town has safe routes out in case we actually have a fire.
Right.
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. Wildfires are a growing concern to us. How does the town work with the fire district to create evacuation plans, fire barriers, eliminate underbrush, and general preparedness?
No. Well, we certainly have all seen in the news what happened in Santa Rosa, Mendocino, Southern California, what wildfires can do. And these are places not that much different than Woodside, and in my estimation, Woodside could even be worse. The fact that we have been growing without any fires here to burn off that underbrush. And as Ned said, where we live up the hill, it's a concern of ours all the time. Jennifer and I actually live on the end of a little private road, and there is no secondary exit. And so we worry all the time about, what happens if a fire comes. And so the fire district here is great. I attended one of their emergency presentations a few months ago, and they informed the community of things that they are doing as kind of a response to the fires in California and trying to determine how to better be prepared here. So there's probably some good information from them that they could be maybe sharing with the town a little more. That's fairly very current. I, in my business, work with fire codes all the time, and knowing that any new construction has a lot more requirements than what existed back when most of the homes here were built. I think it's important that we enforce all the building codes that are out there. They're there for a reason, and review our condition as a town and making sure that everybody here has had the opportunity to create their defensible spaces and evaluate their situation.
Thank you. Here's another question, and you get to be first. The intersections at 84 and 36 and 84 and Kenyatta Road are famously dangerous. Vehicles and cyclists, no lights. How can the town work with the state to make these intersections safer?
Great question.
Yeah, these are good questions.
And I think they meant Highway 35 and 36. That's Skyline Boulevard.
Right.
Yeah, and actually earlier I mentioned this. So on the circulation committee, we review these traffic issues all the time, the safety and all. And what needs to be understood is a lot of the roads that go through Woodside are not entirely within the jurisdiction of Woodside. So Highway 84 and Highway 35 and Interstate 280. And these are right-of-ways that, in order to do any kind of construction, needs to be permitted by Caltrans. And so the town needs to constantly pressure Caltrans to improve and make these safer. Caltrans doesn't, they don't come out and watch what's going on. They have to hear from the community. And so in our circulation committee, what we often do is we discuss these. So like I mentioned earlier about the intersection of 280 and 84 has been discussed. Kenyatta Road and Woodside Road has also been a intersection that comes up often. I don't think we've actually brought up too much on Highway 35 and 84, but obviously it's a very congested and possibly dangerous intersections. These are intersections that were designed and built, 100 years ago, maybe not 280, the others. And so now with the increase in traffic and more people riding bikes, they have to be evaluated to make some changes. So it's important for the town to understand who to contact at Caltrans and get them involved. And I've actually been involved in that process with my committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like me to read the question?
Sure, thank you.
The intersections of 84 and 35, 84 and Kenyatta Road are famously dangerous with vehicles and cyclists, no lights. How can the town work with the state to make these intersections safer?
Great. So I agree with Frank. We need to work with Caltrans. I don't think they're necessarily. I don't think they're holding their end of the bargain. Again, not to sound like a broken record, but I watched 84 literally fall apart in my backyard, and I watched how long it took for Caltrans to even begin to address the issue. Yeah, I understand it's a different jurisdiction. I'm an attorney. I understand jurisdictions, but I think the town deserves better from Caltrans. Can we force them to do things legally? Maybe, maybe not. But what we do need is a voice on town council to maybe haul Caltrans in and have town halls, have public forums where they are informing people about what's going on. I think one of my biggest issues with 84 and the dangerousness is we don't always know what's going on. And communication is paramount. We need to know what Caltrans is doing. And they should be at town hall. They should be having public forums. They should be explaining what's going on. And if they are refusing to put up a light, if they're refusing to do safety fixes because it's too expensive or they can't do it, they need to come to town and explain to the people of Woodside why they can't do it. I went to multiple town council meetings this year where dozens of parents came forward saying that Kenyatta Road was just unsafe for their kids to walk to school. That's simply unacceptable. And I saw some people say, well, this is just outside of our jurisdiction, there's nothing we can do about it. Call Caltrans. Our response to the people, to residents of Woodside should not be call Caltrans. Our response should be, I will call Caltrans for you. I will be an advocate for you. We will bring them in. We will make them answer the hard questions so that we actually figure out what is happening, when it's going to be fixed, and what we can do about these problems.
Okay. Here's a question which is sort of similar to the others, but I'll ask it because we're running out of questions. Are there any more questions out there? Get them written in case you have them. We have two more and then a closing one. This one is, 84 has lots of construction, both planned and weather-related in the last few years. How can the state and town do a better job of planning these inconveniences and give us better access to our homes and jobs?
So, I feel like I just answered that question. I think I did, but to sound like a broken record, I think, I guess the focus of that question more is communication. And I don't see why we cannot have Caltrans representatives having public forums, having open houses, where they come to town and talk to us about what their plan is, when things are going to be done, and when these things don't get done on time, hold them accountable. Yes, 84 is run by Caltrans, it's not Woodside jurisdiction, but me and my family, we rely on that road for going to school, for going to work, for our safety. It's not something that the town should simply sit idly by and hope that the state takes care of, or hopes that the residents make enough phone calls and we get things done. We need to have an open line of communication with Caltrans. And when they're not communicating with us, we need to force them to communicate with us.
Okay.
Well, as a civil engineer, I work on road projects. I know a lot about roads. And Highway 84 was constructed like 100 years ago with different standards, and it's going to fail more. And right now, the way Caltrans deals with it is as it happens. So, they wait till a road failure before they do anything. And then it becomes an emergency repair project. And one of the things we saw this last couple of years that every one of those fixes was an emergency repair project. What that means is they have contractors already pre-qualified to go out and spend money on time and materials to fix the project. These are not design, bid, build projects. So what that means is that you're paying a higher dollar amount. You're at the mercy of a contractor that really doesn't have a time schedule. And in fact, if anything, they're incentivized by taking longer because they're going to get paid more. And I think we witnessed that this last couple of years. I would often discuss the schedules with the town engineer, Sean Rose, and he would tell me what their plan was of when it was going to be completed, and they always missed it. And then we had to go back to Caltrans and say, you know, you're not getting it done when you said so. What needs to happen is they need to do a better overall evaluation of the road, because it will fail again. I drive up and down it every day, and I kind of have an engineering eye. I've already seen a few places I believe are going to fail at some point to get a lot of rain. So we need to encourage Caltrans to be a little more proactive, evaluate the whole road, and have a little bit more comprehensive plan of how to fix it and retrofit it rather than waiting each time it fails.
Thank you. Okay, we're winding down now, and let's see, you get to answer first this time, right? And the question is, yes, it is right. Regarding fire safety, Woodside still allows shake roofs, even on barns. What would you do about that?
Roof fire stuff, wow. Boy, this could be a tough one, because Woodside has very deep history in about its rural past barns. I worked on a project in the last couple of years. It was a secondary unit, and the architect asked me, well, what kind of things would Woodside want to see? I said, make it look like a barn. And he did, and I think it got through real fast. I think most communities in California where we do have high fire danger, they have banned the use of shake roofs. And I think at some point Woodside probably will too. There are other materials that look like shake but don't act like it. And I think those are the types of things that Woodside should be looking into. As we said earlier, the fire danger here is very high. It's just a matter of time before we see one. And it's pretty well accepted in communities throughout California that a wood shake roof is much more dangerous than composite style roofs. So I would be in favor of seeing some changes in that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very, very specific question. I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you that fire safety is one of my paramount concerns. And I understand people's need to design their homes how they see fit and have the house that they want. But at the end of the day, we are a community. We have to act like a community. We have to live together. We have to protect each other. If there is building materials that are highly flammable, like shake roofs, we have to reconsider that. We just do. We aren't living in an island. Each of our homes is not an island. We are responsible for each other. And so if there is something that is a high fire danger, like shake roofs or trees that are posing problems to electrical lines, we need to take a hard look at it and maybe eliminate it, because again, we have to, one thing I love about Woodside is that we are a community. We have to look out for each other, and we have to, fire safety just has to be a paramount concern for everyone here.
Okay, Frank?
I answered it already.
What's back to you? You're right, we have a new question.
Okay.
You ready for a new question? We're getting near the end of our event, I can tell. The town of Woodside does not allow owner builders to prepare site development permits. Is this a justified restriction?
Well, I'll be frank. I'm sorry. I'm surprised that did not happen earlier. Actually, can I get that question again?
Sure. Really?
Yes, please.
The town of Woodside does not allow owner builders to prepare site development permits. Is this a justified restriction?
I'm not aware of that restriction, and kind of like the Shake Groups, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but I will say that if I'm on town council, one thing I won't do is pretend to know all the answers. On an issue like this, I would want to talk to the experts, I'd want to talk to builders, I'd want to talk to planning and ASRB to learn more about it. I think too often, both in town, in the United States, in state government, we have folks who are simply substituting their opinion or their judgment for facts. This is one of those issues that I want to dig into, research, get educated about before deciding. Thanks.
Okay. Ned, what do you think?
Frank.
Frank, what do you think? Go ahead.
So I think the purpose of this rule is so that the town doesn't have developers come in, buying up land, building houses just to sell them. Woodside has always been a community of landowners that built what they wanted and stayed here. And I think that's the purpose for this. Whether it fits today, I mean, this was probably been around since Woodside's been around. That's maybe to be seen. But I think this is one of those things that's unique to Woodside, and actually I haven't really heard this to be an issue. So my feeling is maybe it's okay. As Ned said, if it became an issue, we have to put some thought and think through what it really means. As you know, my experience is I actually usually working with either a developer or an owner. I've worked on both sides. So when it comes to actually designing and constructing a house, it's not necessarily that different. I think what becomes more different is the motivation for it. Maybe those are things that need to be relooked at.
Good. Okay, here's our last question, and you get to answer it first. And then we'll have our closing statements. And this is a good one for both of you to think about. Obviously, there are lots of issues here in Woodside. What would be your top priority in your first year of office if elected?
Okay. I think I know that answer right off. My top priority would be to work with staff and try to have a plan. I know they're right now working on making some changes, some development standard changes, and trying to improve the permitting process. And it's coming at a time when the town council is losing a lot of experienced people. So I would want to at least personally want to be well connected to that, maybe because I've got maybe some more experience dealing with the permitting side of things than others. And so I see that as my main focus, as well as traffic, but you asked me for one, so I would have to pick that as my top one. Though I would have to say traffic issues have always been close to heart with me as a member of the circulation committee and a supporter of the safe routes to school work that was done here. That's a really close second.
Okay. Nick.
Thank you. I think I would have to pick safe routes to schools, and road safety is my #1 issue. And for two reasons. One, I'm a parent. My kids are in daycare right now, but eventually they're going to start going to public schools in the community, and I can't imagine living in a town where we can't guarantee that our kids can bike and walk to school safely. I've been to at least 2 town council meetings where dozens of parents, primarily from the Glens and living on Kenyatta Road, came forward and said, I'm afraid to let my kid walk to school. I'm afraid to let my kid bike to school. My kid almost got hit by a car because we don't have safe lanes. That is bar none unacceptable. For me, when I heard that, I knew exactly why. In addition to other reasons, one of the reasons I was running was when we hear about kids not being safe, when I hear about kids not being able to walk to school safely, I think we have to stop what we're doing. We have to focus our attention here. If we cannot provide for our kids, then what's the point of town council? We can talk about a lot of complicated issues, we can talk about building and permitting, but at the end of the day, if we can't provide a safe town, then we're not doing our jobs. So for me, safe routes to schools, safe roads would be my #1 priority, and I would definitely focus on that. If we're going to do a post number 2, it would be the environment and fire safety, because again, I think we are just one accident away from having a pretty serious fire up in District 7, and so I think we need to take that very seriously and start being more proactive about it.
Okay, we're ready for closing statements. Are you ready for closing statements? Would you like a minute to catch your breath and stand up and stretch before you?
Does everybody want to take their break?
Yeah, stand up, everybody.
Let's all stand.
I'm ready.
Well, I actually did not prepare my closing statement because I wanted to be ready for anything at this point. Not knowing exactly how this was going to go. I want to reiterate that my purpose of running for council is to bring experience to it. That we are seeing 4 members of the town council leave this year that have a combined experience of 54 years. That's probably unprecedented at any time in town history. At the same time, we're experiencing pressures to make changes to building codes and building standards in the town. There's pressure to make changes to improvements in traffic, whether it's, safe. I want to make a point on the safe routes to school. I've been a part of that ever since the beginning of it, and just so people know, a lot of that construction is just about ready to happen, and it's been in the workings for a long time. So we will see some of that safe routes to school work happening here that's been worked on for the last several years. You've also seen new crosswalks pop up too, and so there's more being done to make the town safer for pedestrians. A lot of this is due to work I've done on Architectural Control Committee. We've been very active at getting these things to happen. The defensible space is a big issue with the natural disaster and fire hazards. And once again, a lot of these are land development issues that I'm familiar with, having been a civil engineer and land surveyor. And so once again, I'm bringing my experience to the council that deals with all these really important subjects that are now coming up at a time when we're losing a lot of experience on the council. So I believe that this is what the town needs, is some experience. This is the only district that you have a choice in your vote. The other 3 districts have 1 candidate. So you get that person, good or bad. District 7, you have a choice, and it's between the 2 guys you see up here. So hopefully that's strong enough for me to get a lot of your votes, and I look forward to servicing this town. This is definitely a place I love and want to be, and I think I can make it good for everybody too, and help protect it and make this continue to be the great town it is. And I want to say thank you for all these people that showed up. When I got here early and there was nobody here, and I thought, geez, we need to be talking to a camera, my wife over there, and that's so I thank you. And that's one thing that's always surprised me coming to Woodside, is seeing how much people here care. We get people come to our architectural control committee meetings. And it's obvious that that people here are aware of what's going on, and people here deserve it. This is a great community. It's not an easy place to end up. And when you're here, you realize how special it is, and you want to make sure that it's left in a way that you want to stay. So, anyways, thank you all for coming here, and I hope I can get your votes.
Thanks. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak this evening, introduce myself, and present my vision for Woodside. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters, and thank you all for coming out on a Thursday night. I'm running because I want to serve and improve Woodside. I want to be a voice for the residents of the town. I want to be an advocate for the residents of the town. I want to fight for the residents of this town. I've spoken to countless neighbors the last few months, and one common refrain is that they feel the town does not always hear them. I promise to listen. I'll speak for those who feel unheard, whether it's the single mom in Skywood Acres who I met recently who's having trouble getting her child to school, or the father I met in the Glens who can't fix his garage because there's just too much red tape in town. I'll be a voice for them. I'll be an advocate for you. For the past 12 years, as an attorney, I've advocated on behalf of my clients, the state of California, the U.S. government. I've been an advocate for crime victims, an advocate for the environment, seniors, and families. I'll bring that same advocacy, the same passion for service to Woodside. I will not always have a quick answer or a solution to your problem. I will not pretend to have an answer to all of your questions. I did not have an answer to multiple questions tonight. But I pledge to listen to you, work with those who can help, find the experts who have the knowledge to help us, and find the solution. This town is incredible. I want it to remain incredible. I want this to be a hometown that my daughters can be proud of and look back on and think that was an amazing place to grow up. I want to work and serve for Woodside, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank both candidates who are willing to run for office, which we know is a big deal. So thank them for being willing. We thank you for coming tonight, reminding you all to vote on November 6th. And in the back table, be sure to, yeah, right. You have an all-mail ballot here in Woodside, as we do. The ballots drop this coming Monday, so you'll be getting your ballot within next week. And if you vote before Election Day, your vote will be counted. And when the polls close on election night, your vote will be counted and you'll be there. And so it's good to vote early. I like to vote often. Anyway, be sure to pick up some materials. There is a website that you can go to that the link has, votersedge.org, to get more information about all of the elections. We have some propositions that we do make some recommendations on some propositions only after very careful study. But it's helpful in marking your ballot if you. So pick those things up. Thank you all for coming. Remember to vote. Thank you.